message to the billionaire class: you can't have it all.
Yes, 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 ladies and gentlemen. It is December 22nd, 2017. Welcome, everybody. This is the evolution of now. Thank you guys for showing up this week. I am here joined by my two good friends. And friends, I mean that. From the heart.
Well, I wouldn't say friends. I wouldn't go that far.
Whoa. Oh,
loose acquaintances.
Wow. That just hurts. That really hurts. Well, okay, these fuckheads that I do this podcast with, Jordan Speed, and Michael Beswick.
Hey.
And my name is Christopher Robinson, because I always somehow forget that whole part of it. So, how's your week been going, guys? Huh?
Not much. It's getting close to Christmas. Nothing much happening, really.
Yeah?
Aye. No.
Boring. Huh?
Oh, the Brexit studies were finally released, and
that's not fun.
What we've learned is that Boeing makes planes, and electricity is important. And you think I'm joking? Well, that is literally what the report said.
You did post a story earlier today that kind of corroborated that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
It was just.
What was it? Airbus. Airbus makes planes.
Airbus and Boeing make planes. Really? Really? And lawmakers are complaining because obviously you can find this shit out on Google.
Shocking.
But yeah, it turns out that the UK are completely incompetent
and corrupt. Oh, it's weird.
Yeah.
Government being corrupt.
It's one of those. I wish I was ready. Like, is this a joke? This has to be a joke.
Yeah.
How are things, John?
Things are pretty okay. And people are like maniacs about Christmas in the US. So just gearing up for that, stressing myself out, trying to participate in this consumer's experience. So yeah, it's been a high stress, but that high stress mixed with Donald Trump and mixed in with this current tax bill that just passed.
How goes the battle on the front lines of the war on Christmas? Have you made any progress? I'm told Donald Trump is a big adversary in this, scuppering all our plans to end Merry Christmas once and for all.
So, I mean, once again, the right wingers are pissed at Starbucks for saying Happy Holidays and not Merry Christmas. Apparently, they're still, pissed off that that somebody in their right mind would depict Santa Claus as a black person. And yeah, so that's just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, too, what's her face? That's not at Fox News anymore. Megyn Kelly was also a proponent of, well, Santa's not black. He's white, obviously. So
right. I mean, she's giving up the ghost, but it's weird that they would have like a whole segment about it. It's like, sure, like, yeah, like the actual Saint Nicholas, yeah, he was white, sure, that's fine. But like this new mythical dude that just comes down your chimney and places gifts is not the same Saint Nicholas. Somebody different. Like I don't know, guys.
I mean, I guess as long as the parents consent to Santa Claus, I guess I'm conflating him and Roy Moore right now. I don't know why, but anyway,
Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
How about you, Chris? How's everything been?
Well, the war on Christmas is very much in go. I was at Wawa today earlier, getting some soda for my my drinking special today, which is currently Code Red and rum. But I was getting the soda part of it, and
I did my bit. I said to the guy, "I hope you have a good New Year." Skipping Christmas entirely. Shots fired.
Well, the guy at the counter though was like, "Merry Christmas," and I was like, "Whoa, dude!"
God.
I was like, "You too." He didn't say that. He didn't say it that way, but he did say Merry Christmas, and I was like, "Yeah, you too, man." And I left. So War on Christmas, really, right up there right now. We are just.
And is it just me? Is this War on Christmas thing? Is it like the epitome of whiteness? Like, they've just decided that everyone hates the Christmas, and because nobody actually hates Christmas, they've decided they won. It's like no one was fighting you. Congratulations, you had a fight with the air and won.
It's the whole Christian motif right now. Unfortunately, they are is a victim complex. That's all they ever think about is like, oh, poor me, I'm a victim as a Christian. And it just seems to be, at least. I don't know about
it just seems to be a white people thing.
Maybe I've been
talking to some American black friends too much recently. White people thing. White people doing white things.
Yeah. It's just,
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, whatever. But today, this week's topic for the show is we mentioned progressive tax systems, and I guess the elephant is in the room, as it is commonly phrased already. And recently, the Republicans have passed a new tax plan through the House and the Senate, and I think we also have to give it a little bit of coverage on this show too, just because it's super relevant to our topic this week. So this week the Senate passed a law, or a bill, really. Sorry, a bill for the new tax plan that the Republicans have been working on, that they also have kind of closed the doors to the Democrats. They have not really had any say in the entire process of making this bill at all. And they made sure of it because they tried to make it adhere to, I believe it's the Byrd rule, which stipulates that they can't pass a bill unless it's 60 votes if it doesn't meet certain requirements, which this bill...
Yeah, including deficit requirements, right?
Yeah. And so the deficit requirement is, I think, like $1.5 trillion. It cannot change the deficit that much or over, or else they would have to have at least 60 votes to pass it. And so what happened this week was they passed a bill that goes just like barely under that mark, where it's just barely under $1.5 trillion in tax cuts overall. But it's a hell of a lot more than that, right? Like, I have a piece here from the Intercept that actually puts down some actual numbers on this bill, and it's pretty insane. I think you brought this to our attention, right, Jordan?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So
yeah,
if you wanted to, introduce this part of it, or
you see, you might want to take. I don't have the article in front of me currently, but
I do.
Oh, go!
I'm
right
actually
ahead.
prepared. How about that?
Oh no! I just have another one up here instead. But yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah. The Intercept piece here is called "The GOP Plan is the Biggest Tax Increase in American History by Far." And so, like I said, this plan overall cuts taxes by $1.5 trillion over 10 years. But it's a hell of a lot more than that, because this bill actually cuts taxes by a full $6 trillion over that same time period. And this article actually goes into it. It's pretty amazing, and it also raises $4.5 trillion in taxes other than the cuts,
because of
obviously.
That Byrd rule.
Yeah, so they had to keep it, within that 1.5 trillion area. what it seems to me is, let's go into some of this. The alternative minimum tax paid almost exclusively by the rich is almost eliminated, and that is going to be a $700 billion tax cut to the rich themselves. And another $150 billion goes to repealing the estate tax, which currently exempts the first 11 million of the deceased's estate, so nobody even remotely middle class pays it. And I'm reading right from the article here. The repeal benefits so few people you can practically list them out, it says in this article. And that's just two pieces of this. $700 billion for the alternative minimum tax, which the alternative minimum tax, if I can remember correctly, is there is a minimum amount of tax that the rich can pay. So their going rate, I believe, was around 39% at the very, very top tax bracket.
The idea is, because of all the loopholes and stuff, the rich can sometimes bring their taxes down so much they're barely paying anything. Yeah. And so you say, right, what we're going to do is this alternative minimum, which is 40%, and all the loopholes in the world can never get you below that 40%. So you always have to pay at least that, is the idea.
Yeah. And so they got rid of that, obviously. so the rich can actually keep going.
Yeah, just keep cutting through loopholes.
And there's another more than $200 billion in cuts goes to a provision that also allows a greater deduction for dividends on foreign earnings. And obviously, I don't know if you guys have dividends that from foreign earnings, but most of us don't have foreign earnings. Those are almost exclusively the very wealthy and corporations. So that's also part of this. But that's not even it. There's so much more. $600 billion goes to reducing taxes on pass-throughs and other businesses not set up as corporations, which law firms, lobby shops, and doctors' offices often benefit from these things. And so this is the one part where the GOP typically can say, yeah, we're cutting money on, or we're cutting the taxes on small business. And this is the part that they're actually referencing. Pass-throughs are typically small businesses, if I remember correctly, because I've been listening a lot to a bunch of different podcasts that have been talking about this and reading a lot of stuff on this. And yeah, pass-throughs are typically smaller businesses, not necessarily corporations. But they're going to be getting $600 billion. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Mike? Are you there? Did you die?
Oh, no.
Is Mike gone?
He's gone. Well,
Mike is gone. It's sad.
It is. But like you just highlighted there, is that a lot of these, so far, in those, you're highlighting the benefits that are going to be going to the top one, the top 1%, or even what is?
Oh, you're there.
Oh, hey,
Mike.
It was a fail on Skype saying that. My mic was fine.
Nice. So you're back. But Jordan, go on with your point.
I don't know where I left it.
Damn it, Michael! You ruined his point.
I'm looking for it. It's okay.
But it's okay. Like what I was mentioning there were all just the tax cuts so far in this entire bill, according to this Intercept piece. And there's more than just that as well. But
something I was talking to Jordan about just before we started. One of the big problems with these tax bills is because they're so big and complicated, because taxes have to be fairly big and complicated, because you're taxing something as complicated as the American economy. You can say, no matter what, you can say, well, there's this cut over here that'll help you, and this deduction here that'll help you. And omit all the stuff that's your tax increases. And so you come away and say, oh, well, you've got this deduction and this deduction, that'll help me. Which is why we have organizations like the CBO who go through and study the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's impossible for any one person to look at it and go, I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, it's huge. It's like, what was it, 900 pages? Something like that? 500 pages?
I don't remember how many pages, but
500, yeah.
It's impossible for someone, me to look through and figure out how my taxes will be affected, which is why it's quite difficult to fight this one.
Yeah.
Which probably might get through really easily.
Well, it already has, unfortunately. It's been passed today. It was signed into law today by Donald Trump. Fucking asshole he is. It was passed earlier in the week. If it wasn't yesterday, then it was Wednesday that it passed both the House and the Senate entirely. He signed it into law today, and these cuts will not go into effect, from what I know, until 2019, which is very, very opportune for them, because 2019 is an election year, so these cuts will not actually start affecting people till actually literally right after the next election happens for president.
They're going to fuck everything up and the Democrats going to have to fix it.
Exactly. So if the Democrats do somehow win the next round for the presidential election, which if they cannot win this, they can't win fucking anything.
They're irrelevant as a party. I mean.
But if they do win, though, then I guarantee you, I will put it down in stone right now, the Republicans will then say, you see that? The Democrats get into office and they've raised your taxes immediately. You see that? And no, this is actually policy that they put into place like in 2017. Before 2020,
There's another crash predicted, and it will happen probably at the start of the next election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably going to have the Democrats with the tax raises and an economic crash. So the Republicans are going to be like, look at this mess caused by the Democrats.
You see that? You put Democrats in there. Yeah.
Entire electoral strategy is to fuck everything up and then blame the other guy for not fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we can't have government, because government is completely corrupt and government can't do anything. That's why you should vote for us and put us in charge so we can completely destroy it. It's just like they're sabotaging it, and they then point at it and say, "You see that government's not working." It's just like it's sort of like taking a china plate and being like, "Hey, this plate's broken," and you're like, "Wait. It doesn't look too bad to me." They throw it against the wall. See, it's broken. It's just like, dude, you just did that. It was you that broke the plate. It's just, it's so frustrating.
It's quite formulaic. And also, I would like to mention is that, so after not losing out on the Affordable Care Act, or on repealing the Affordable Care Act. Following that, Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, both speakers of the Senate and the House, said that, okay, now we're going to work on a tax plan. Now, how long ago was that? Let's see. That was about maybe about 3 months ago, maybe even less than that. And the thing is, the whole ideal of this is that they wanted to pass it before the end of the year. This a lot of it is for optics now, because Trump's pressuring them to pass something so that he has a legislative win.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah.
Anything. And so they did that. Now, like we mentioned probably, I think 2 podcasts ago, when the Republicans first drafted this bill, there were, writings in the margins, and, it was getting clipped, whenever they would photocopy it, because it was just all a mess. And this whole thing was a rush job. And the kicker for me is that this is supposed to go into effect January of 2018.
Yeah, that was the thing. There's no lead up time. Like normally when you pass a big economic change like this, you have a transition, a phase in. Obamacare took 3 years, I think it was, to phase in. Right. They seem to want it just to happen. There's no time. No one's got any time to figure out what's going on or how much tax they should be paying. If you want to dodge your taxes, if that's your thing, this is probably a really good time to do it while everyone's confused as fuck about what earth is meant to be paying.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even on a, I guess from I can't even call myself middle class. I guess I'm like, lower class in terms of like how much I make. But even on that front, like we're going to talk about this tonight, but there's still a lot of uncertainty exactly about how this whole thing will affect, say, the healthcare industry. I mean, we know as far as what independent analyses are saying, it's going to be really bad, or is going to be pretty bad, and I guess the overall outcome for middle class Americans is in 2025, because it's the tax cut for the middle class, or for individual deduction, is temporary up to 2025. And then by that point, you're because look, let's be real. Let's be honest for 1 second. So the Republicans, they made it in a way where they're designed this bill in a way where, yes, if you're middle class, you will likely, not to say everybody, but you may receive a deduction. You may receive a deduction, somewhere between $1,600 and $900, or probably even lower than that. So when they say, look, this will reduce taxes for the middle class, they're not necessarily lying. It's just the fact that it's not as significant as the corporate tax cut that they're giving out. So say for middle income people, all right, you know what? Let's just start with because we didn't even talk about like the figures. Do you guys want to go into the figures in terms of like the corporate tax cut that they're giving out here?
I mean, we've given a little bit of it: the alternative minimum tax, the estate tax, the provision for pass-throughs, the billions of dollars that are given to that. But if you want to go into that,
the overall, it's cutting the corporate tax rate from 35% down to 21%.
Like a third.
Which, like you said, Chris, is the largest tax cut in American history.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not just because of that. It's all of these factors coupled in together.
The economic shock is going to be quite significant there.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want to like go more into these numbers, like we were going, like we said, the alternative minimum tax, the all these other things. The one part, like you were saying, the part that's actually going to affect maybe middle class people is the individual family and tax rate is going to be cut about $1 trillion. And by this article from The Intercept, that will actually affect some people that aren't from the vastly wealthy, but not much, as it says here. People making between $40,000 and $50,000 a year would see a combined increase of $5.3 billion in taxes. And it says, where would that money go? Folks earning more than $1 million would see their taxes collectively cut by $5.8 billion a year. So they're increasing taxes on the people that are making between $40,000 and $50,000 a year, and cutting the taxes of millionaires by $5.8 billion.
Redistribution.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. Yeah. This tax plan is literally that. And this is the same guy. Donald Trump was the same guy that ran on the whole idea of draining the swamp. He said it all the time. He even said, "Yeah, I thought originally it was kind of a hokey saying, but I started saying it and people liked it, so I kept saying it." And like he was literally, he even said it in one of his speeches to the crowd there that, yeah, I only started saying it because I got an actual positive crowd reaction from it. That's only why I said it. I didn't say it because I actually meant it.
Up on the spot and didn't mean it.
Yeah, he never said that he meant it. He just said that he started saying it because he actually had a positive crowd reaction from saying it. That's literally all he said. So This is the same shit that we've been saying about this guy for over a year now in this whole podcasting business, because we actually started here, me and Jordan, with this podcast on November, what was it? November 8th or 10th or whatever the hell the election date was. I've blocked it out of my mind. 2016. But yeah. But I mean, this tax cut is such a wealth distribution that it's insane. I can't like articulate it into words much better than that, you know? And like we were just putting out numbers that were all just cuts. So where is all the new money coming in? Because if they're going to be cutting taxes by $6 trillion, and somehow it only comes down to $1.5 trillion in tax cuts overall, where does the rest come from? Do you guys know? Do you have any idea?
You.
So, yeah, I mean, did you want to try and jump into these numbers, Jordan? Did you have it? Or you probably don't have it in front of you, right?
No, but I'm sure you do.
All right. So, so if you allow me to read right from this article, some $300 billion is raised by allowing companies who stashed profits offshore to repatriate it at a much lower rate. That repatriated cash will go straight to dividends for shareholders and stock buybacks, but gets counted as a tax increase, which then allows the GOP to give an equal $300 billion cut on the other side of the ledger. The bill raises $1.6 trillion by repealing the personal exemption everybody gets on their tax returns. Getting rid of it across the board is extraordinarily regressive, since it gives the same benefit to the likes of Jared Kushner as it gives to the people that have much less money than he does. So they're hit much harder. So they're taking away the personal exemptions, and so you don't get that anymore. I don't get that anymore. None of us get that anymore. Jared Kushner doesn't get it anymore, but it doesn't affect him as much as it affected us. So that's one way they're raising money on this. It raises another $1.3 trillion by going after deductions for state and local taxes, mortgage interest, charitable contributions, interest on student loans, medical expenses, teachers' out-of-pocket expenses for paper and pencils for students, and a bunch of other nickel and diming of the middle class. No change drawer in the car, couch cushion, or plastic piggy bank is going untouched in the hunt for money to pay for the tax cut, as read right from the article here. So they're going after teachers, they're going after medical expenses, they're going after student loans, and they're going after charitable contributions, mortgage interest, and state and local taxes. You cannot get any exemptions for these anymore, from my reading of this.
And also that's pretty significant for our two high tax states such as New Jersey, New York, California, because individuals do rely on deducing state and local taxes on their returns, because essentially, you want to exempt everything that you possibly can in order to receive a better return, but yeah, unfortunately, it is going to disproportionately hurt higher tax states.
Happens with blue states, which part of me wonders if that was intentional.
Probably. I mean, come on. Are we talking about the same Republicans here? Like, these things are always intentional by these guys. They're trying desperately to appease their donors. The donor class is who runs this country. And these politicians, especially the Republicans and a lot of the Democrats, most of the Democrats, are beholden to the lobbyists and the wealthy interests of this country. That's why we've seen in a lot of studies that public opinion on policy means literally nothing. The one thing that actually makes a difference in public policy and what gets passed by our government is who is funding the nominations and the coffers of these politicians. So you're not putting money into these people's coffers and their bank accounts overseas. So you have no say in what these politicians are passing in our government. And it's just so disgusting on its face. And this is just another way that they're just handing trillions of dollars to the wealthiest, the 1%, the corporations, and they're just completely screwing the rest of us over.
Right. Lying about it too. Because they're not admitting that it's going to do this. They're actually telling people that they're cutting their taxes. Well, it's just not true.
Yeah.
Also, like to add the fact that they snuck some other things into this bill, such as, of course, since they failed on the healthcare front, they're completely doing away with the individual mandate, which would penalize people via their taxes who did not purchase health insurance. And the reason why that's significant is because essentially what that does is it basically lowers the premium. When you buy into the Affordable Care Act, basically all that money is going to people who actually uses their Affordable Care Act. And that also
it's risk spreading. So you've got high-risk people who are all paying the healthcare. It's going to be super expensive. So you need healthy people to be paying it as well.
Right. And apparently without this mandate, what it's going to do is raise premiums for people who are on the Affordable Care Act, which are people normally, at least according to data, are people who are low wage earners or middle wage earners.
Yeah.
And so within about a decade, 13 million people will lose their health insurance thanks to the Republicans gutting gutting this important thing. So that's also, that's something else,
So they've all just managed to gut one of the core parts of Obamacare. Fantastic. Well done, weird. Republicans.
It's weird, but
literally everything is fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, definitely they put that in there for a reason, obviously. They've been trying to kill Obamacare. They didn't get to actually kill it when they were just specifically trying to deregulate or vote against Obamacare and try and get rid of it a few months ago. So they got rid of the mandate here. And just looking at the mandate a little bit more, what you were saying is essentially that the mandate essentially puts more people into the risk pool. And when the risk pool has more people into it, that means that premiums for these plans can actually be lowered in some way. So you have, like you were saying, more risk aversion where the risk is spread out over more people paying into these plans. And actually part of that was also that the government was subsidizing a lot of these plans for really low wage people or people that have nothing. They were being subsidized in a lot of ways from the government, and partly due to this mandate, the penalty on it, and just tax money in general. And so when you get rid of the individual mandate part of it, then there will be healthier people or just poorer people in general that just can't afford these premiums anymore, especially since the subsidies are going away in a large way as well. These people are going to just not buy healthcare anymore. They're going to drop out of the system, and then because of that, all of a sudden, the premiums are going to raise for the rest of everyone that's going to be staying under healthcare. and it's going to have a premium that they're going to have to pay. So this is why the mandate was important. It was trying to disperse the amount of people that were paying into the system to lower costs, although obviously that didn't ever happen because these corporations that are in control of the healthcare system, they don't lose money. They want to make more money.
Obamacare did control the cost a little bit. It did help a little.
Very little bit.
Little. But this is why public healthcare systems tend to be lower cost because, one, there's no profit involved. So if you would do a healthcare system or a healthcare system plus 5% profit, which is cheaper, but also because everyone pays into it, the cost per person is less. Because everyone in the country needs healthcare, no matter how you shake it out. The trick is to give them the healthcare the most efficient way possible. And if you have everyone paying into it, the actual cost per person comes down because, well, the people who needed healthcare were getting it anyway, and you were having to pay for that anyway. And the people who don't need healthcare are now paying into it, so the cost is less.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Also, one other thing that was snuck into this bill as well is, we all know that Trump is on a war against the environment, and apparently his buddies in the Republican Party feels the same way. So Senator Lisa Murkowski, who is, of course, she represents Alaska, and we know her name because during the repeal effort of the Affordable Care Act, she was one of the people who decided to vote no on the Republicans' push to repeal. But in turn, here's why we have to be very slow with our praise, and that's because Murkowski wanted a provision added to this, which would allow drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which
in the
Arctic National Wildlife Refuge.
Lovely.
Yeah, and apparently, because it is a belief. Everyone don't agree on this, don't necessarily agree on this, but it's believed that there could be very valuable oil within that region. And so they're taking their chances. And apparently, look, you're probably thinking, that has nothing to do with taxes. Why would this go through? And apparently it was tested because it almost didn't make this bill based on parliamentary reasons, because, of course, it was hard to see how this, aligned with what they were passing at all. So their argument is that what this will do is, it will raise more than $1 billion over the next decade. Now, that's what they say. But apparently an analysis by the Liberal Center for American Progress says that the figure is going to be less than $40 million, which, is
There's a few things like that I'm hearing about where they've predicted, well, it will gain this much money, and anyone's looked at it and gone, that's bullshit, it's magic. So even the massive deficits they're adding is based on their predicted numbers, a lot of which are just bullshit. I believe they predicted a massive growth to the economy, and it's this just isn't going to happen.
Yep, exactly. So yeah. Some things to consider. That they like to, add some things under the table. And
yeah, of course, that's how a lot of legislation does go, unfortunately. But our topic this week was going to be more towards the idea, at least, of a progressive tax system. What is a progressive tax system? This is progressive tax system is actually what we technically have in place right now in America, but obviously our system today is not really meeting up to that ideal any longer. And it's not really for a little while now, for a few decades, I would say, since especially since Ronald Reagan's time. It was under Ronald Reagan that they really started cutting taxes on the wealthiest people in a very, very big way. Because I was reading, actually, from this one article entitled, How Would You Feel About a 94% Tax Rate from Money Watch on CBS News. This is an article from back in 2011. They actually, they say in here that actually it was under President Reagan that taxes for the wealthiest dropped under 70% for the first time in a very long time, in decades. So it was definitely a situation, because before Ronald Reagan, going all the way back to FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was president in the 1930s and 40s, he was one of the first presidents that actually started working towards an income tax like this. And it was under him that we actually did start, I believe it was under him that we started taxing income. And part of this, for his purposes, was during the war, we needed to raise money. And so he devised an income tax that was going to be a progressive tax where, well, if we look at progressive tax for a second, progressive taxation is when, I have a piece here from really Wikipedia. It says, a progressive tax is a tax in which the tax rate increases as the taxable amount increases, which basically means the more money you have and the more income you have, the more you pay in taxes as
so
a overall
the people at the bottom
percentage.
don't pay very much.
Yeah.
I think I've said this on the show before, but in capitalism in general, economic activities tend to transmit wealth upwards. So people say trickle-down economics, but actually a lot of bullshit. Money tends to trickle upwards, actually. It tends to get concentrated in a fairly few parties.
Yeah.
The point of the progressive tax system is to bring that money back down. So you tax the lower end less and the higher end much more to try and pull money out of the top hands. And the other half of that is then you use it to fund social programs which go mostly down to the bottom.
Yeah.
You're sort of trying to keep the cycle of money going, so it goes up and then you can pull it back down, and so so your economy can keep running.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and that definitely seems to make sense, right? The wealthier people in this country should be able to afford a slightly higher tax rate than someone making, let's say, under $10,000 a year. Like someone making that little should not be paying taxes in my book, because like any little bit of taxes is taking so much out of their baseline that they're not going to be able to afford any like of their expenses, like food, shelter, especially if they have a kid or kids. It just becomes so impossible to afford anything when you don't make a lot of money. And taking taxes from them at a higher rate or even the same rate as someone that's making $300 million a year, let's say, is ridiculous. And this is something that the Republicans have been trying to push for over a decade easily at this point, where you saw in the last 2 or 3 election cycles even, a lot of Republicans trying to push the idea of a flat tax rate where everyone pays, like, let's say 15% and that's it. And what that does is it makes that person making $10,000 a year pay 15% of their income to taxes, and then someone making $300 million a year, they pay 15% in taxes. While that sounds like it is fair and makes sense, it really doesn't, because this doesn't account for the entire economy as a whole, where when you buy groceries and you buy all these things, we all buy the same products, right? We all need food. We all need shelter of some sort. We all need these these basic staples of being a human. But like these costs are so much more to the lowest on the rung than they are to someone making a few $100 million a year. Like, the amount of money someone making $10,000 a year isn't even a fraction of 1% of their income per year. You know, like it's just so nakedly gross and grotesque to think that taxing everyone at the same rate is actually a good idea, because what that ultimately does is it helps the upper classes take more and more and more out of the economy for themselves while completely screwing the rest of us. And going back to the tax plan just for a second, we've already seen companies saying that, like, these tax plans, this was the GOP has been saying that this is going to raise wages and it's going to get these companies to start hiring more people. And the consensus out of a lot of corporations is, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. What they're doing already is they're doing this thing called stock buybacks. And what a stock buyback is it basically is a giant money exchange to the shareholders of the company. So when the company itself buys back these stocks, they just pay out to their shareholders in large amounts of money. And so what's happening there is they're taking money out of the company and giving it to the shareholders. Just plain and simple. And this is what these companies are doing right now, even before this new tax plan is even in place, you know?
They're doing it now because the cost of shares is probably going to go up.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're preempting it. Yeah.
There was one company whose name escapes me at the moment, but they're giving all of their workers a £2,000 bonus, a $2,000 bonus, which I believe came to it was either $2 million or $2 billion in total, which was only about 100th of the amount of money they're going to save through tax cuts.
Jeez.
Yeah, so all their workers are like, "Oh yeah, this is great. We're getting a bonus already. This is wonderful." And of course, it's actually just they're buying off support. Basically, it's sick.
While sounds like really good for the employees, and that's great that they're actually sharing even a little bit of it. Some companies aren't even doing it, you know. So
it's nice of them to give their employees a bonus, but I just wish they wouldn't need a massive. Yeah. Like 100 times bigger tax cut to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right. Because they already had the means to do it before.
Yeah. I also have another article here from The Intercept that you also posted, Jordan, about corporations. And the title of this is "Corporations Say Publicly They'll Pocket the Tax Cut, but Republicans Aren't Listening." And so in here, it even says Home Depot led the buyback splurge that is already happening. They've pocketed $15 billion already. And this is on stock buybacks. They're buying back the stocks of their company and paying off their shareholders. And their shareholders have already pocketed $15 billion since this
actual corporations aren't shy about it. They're quite open. Of course we're going to pocket the money. And it says Republicans aren't listening. I'm like, yeah, they are. That's the point.
Yeah, they don't care is the thing. You know, I mean,
it's probably even worse than they don't care. This is the actual point, is to screw people, to give money to rich people.
Yeah.
Right.
Simple indifference would probably actually be a little bit better.
Yeah. It goes on with a quote here from the CFO from the company, Carol Tomei. She quietly admitted the strategy when asked about the impact of tax reform on the firm. She says, quote, "It really all depends on if it happens and when it happens, how we would spend it," which is there. She's talking about the tax cut. "Cash is fungible. Right now, we're thinking it might not happen until 2019. So obviously we are using internally generated cash in 2018 to invest in the business and return capital to our shareholders. If it were to happen in 2019, we might use the cash tax savings to invest in the business and then use generated cash to buy back shares. It's all fungible. The point is, we're going to generate a lot. We may get some from the tax reform and we will use it. We will invest back into the business and we will return it to our shareholders. Of course, they're going to return it to the shareholders. The regular employee is most likely not going to see any kind of a raise. But
because jobs don't depend on how much money the company has. It depends on demand.
Yeah. And
demand creates jobs. The actual money the company has doesn't change anything.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Also, yeah, exactly. So, I think in the argument that these Republicans are making is that, I mean, essentially that's the purpose of cutting corporate tax cuts in their minds, is that it'll encourage, or it'll provide more funds so that these corporations can finally increase their wages for the workers like they always wanted to do, or expand their business in order to up productivity. And the thing is, like, for decades now, productivity's been steadily going up. It's at an all-time high at this very moment, except wages in generally hasn't. Has stayed stagnant. And so in like that model, in like what was done in the UK, Mike, the idea was that, is that cutting corporate tax rates will increase the wage of the common worker. But like you said, even attached with inflation, it has gone down. Yeah,
it's not. It's worker wages have gone down relative to inflation, because obviously money's less valuable, but the wages stay the same. So in real terms, your money's gone down. The buying power of your wage has gone down. That's what I mean. But even though tax rates have dropped quite significantly under the Tory government, so that's bullshit.
Yeah. But we kind of got away from the progressive tax system as a concept as well. Unfortunately, we went right back into the tax bill, which is so frustrating. Yeah, a little bit. But did you want to add something, Jordan? Sorry.
I do. So I think from what I've read, the argument from the wealthy and high income earners is that essentially a progressive tax system is discriminatory. So, I mean, of course we can phrase it in another way, except would you call it as such? I mean, in essence, it will be quite a difference in terms of how much each will be contributing, each classes will be contributing. But I think at that point, it goes to your moral values. Whether or not you truly believe that you have an added responsibility as a high income earner for Jordan, people who are low.
This is this is class warfare, Jordan. If you raise the taxes on the rich and don't raise everyone else's tax, that is class warfare. And this is the argument that we'll hear out of the right. And that's true.
One of my favorite ideas ever was piñata economics, that the rich will trickle down the wealth, but first you have to beat them with a big stick first.
That's pretty good too. But here's a dirty truth that they're not going to tell you, though. We have been dealing with class warfare since the beginning of income and wealth. This is not a situation that has changed over time. Back even in like Roman times and before, there was always class warfare. There was the wealthy and the unwealthy. There has always been class warfare. No matter what we want as people, the rich have been waging this war on us for decades and decades.
Yeah, class warfare.
In the modern era.
Laugh. Since sitting in your Ferrari, I'm sure you're really worried about the class warfare, aren't you?
Yeah.
Get over yourself.
It's so rough, you know? Like, I mean, it must be so tough being rich and only owning three Ferraris, you know? It's got to be tough owning only 3 Ferraris and a private jet.
There's a tax cut specifically on private jets.
There's a tax, what?
There's a tax cut, I believe, specifically on private jets.
But there's no tax, or there's no class warfare. What are you talking about?
Yeah, if that's not class warfare, I don't know what it is.
Mike, let's be honest. Anyone could get that tax cut, provided they buy a private jet.
You just need to buy a private jet.
Yeah, I mean, we all have access to buying Ferraris and private jets, Mike. So, I mean, I don't know what you're so up in arms about, you know? We all have access to these things, you know? But this is the same argument that they've been pushing for healthcare, you know? We want everyone to have access to healthcare, equal access to healthcare. Not healthcare, but access to it. You know,
yeah, everyone's got the same access to expensive healthcare. You just can't afford it.
Exactly. Yeah,
you could buy it if you had the money.
Yeah, that's the word game that the right loves to play about these issues. That we're the party of freedom. We want to extend and open access to everything, but access doesn't mean you get these things either. Access also means
equality of opportunity. Everyone has the same shitty opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I could go to a Ferrari dealership tomorrow and try and buy one. They would probably laugh me out of the door because I don't have enough money to put down on it. But I mean, I could do that. I could totally do that, right?
Well, we have this model for £90,000. What if you got? Well, let's see. For a 10, it's 27 pence. Yeah, they would probably forcibly remove you at that point from their dealership. So I mean, technically, I could buy a Ferrari.
Yeah, you have access to it, Michael, and that's what's important. As long as you have access to buy that Ferrari, we're equal, right? Not necessarily.
No, but, that's straight up possible fair.
Yeah. So I mean, don't let the right wing try and push that narrative that we're trying to start some class warfare. They have been waging it for decades. And like I said, it's been waged for hundreds and thousands of years at this point. Throughout the entirety of human history, there have always been those in power, those with wealth, those that owned land and property, and those that didn't. And there's always been a push and pull between the two, and it's still today too. We have not changed that cycle. The only way we'd ever change that cycle is if we went to like a communist society, which we've even said on the show is not practical. There is no way we could ever have a truly communist society. It's just idealistic and it's not possible. But like, we're never going to get rid of class warfare altogether. The only thing that we have is class struggle. And that's the only thing that is, it's a guarantee. It's just as much a guarantee as death and taxes, just like everything else in this world. We are guaranteed to always have class struggle, and we have to be prepared for that. You know, you can't buy into their bullshit narrative that we are the ones on the left wing of things that are trying to push this narrative of we're the only ones pushing for class warfare, which is not true. It's both sides. Both sides are at tensions with each other. And going on, not to go on to it too long, but like with capitalism in itself is an exacerbator of class of class difference and inequality. And the whole premise of capitalism, we went on this like last week or the week before? I don't remember now. I'm terrible. I have a bad memory. but capitalism is basically exploitation. And the job owner or creator, quote unquote, if you want to call them that, the business owner, has a very personal interest in paying you as little as they possibly can get away with, while making as much money for themselves as they can. And on the worker side of it, they want to make as much money as they can for their labor. So there's always going to be a push and pull with this entire system. If we never get rid of capitalism, this literally will go on forever. This struggle between the worker class and the owner class. Did you guys have anything to add? I don't want to go on too long.
No, no, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, that's just where we are. And I'm going over, a part of my research is going over what exactly we allot our, what the government allots the budget to, or their spending to. And it's quick, mind-blowingly enough, the lion's share of it does go towards Social Security. It go in order is like 24% Social Security, 15% Medicare, 13% health, 13% income security, 5% veterans benefits, so on and so forth. National defense is 15% as well. And it's like, look, people are under that by itself. Now, like in theory, they are, spending on these very important social programs. But the problem is that slashing the taxes for corporations isn't helping the current strife that people are going through right now. Only increasing them is going to add more to the budget, and which means more money going towards these socialized programs, which we all can benefit from. And of course, how it's implemented is important too. But I mean, of course, I'm kind of going off the beaten path a little bit, but
it's all right.
I just I just kind of
tangent. Never.
right. That's not us. That's so unlike us. But yeah. So I do encourage everyone, because I think up until this point I wasn't necessarily aware of how our government was spending, and it's a lot more nuanced than just seeing just the pie chart. It's it's so much. This encompasses so much, and there's so many moving parts, and it's just the problem is just that what they're doing now, it's not helping. It's just not helping. And the progressive tax plan, I mean, it'll undoubtedly add more to the national budget. It'll add more to spending, and that's exactly what we need.
Only executive.
So, we're with $20 trillion in debt. And this this past tax bill is going to add another 1.5 trillion to what we already have. And it's like, of course, of that, that debt is going to fall on the backs of us millennials and the kids that are coming up now. And none of this is helping. It's all just compounding onto the national debt. And we have to fix that. Like, when are we going to stop adding to the deficit? Stop adding to the deficit and actually start taxing a little bit higher, so that we can finally, have sufficient programs, and pay off this freaking debt that we have.
Yeah.
So
there was a time when we actually had what is called a surplus, is when we don't have a deficit, but we have more money. What's that?
We're actually gaining money, not losing it.
Yeah. We were actually gaining money at one point, And that was actually under Bill Clinton. And right before Bill Clinton was Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. And under them, they racked up a deficit, and Bill Clinton destroyed that deficit, and he actually gave us a surplus. And right after his term was George W. Bush, and he started wars in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, and in Iraq.
And tried to pay for the tax cuts.
Yeah. And then also cut taxes and everything as well. And he rose a massive, massive deficit, and then the crash happened. So we've said in the past here, actually, that Bill Clinton was not great in himself either. He was actually one of the reasons why we had the crash in 2008. He deregulated the banks. He got rid of what was called the Glass-Steagall Act, which put firewalls between depositor banks, insurance companies, and speculation on the stock market. And he got rid of those barriers so that these companies could all start coalescing together, which obviously they did right away. And they became these massive entities, like Bank of America bought out Merrill Lynch. And they became these massive, massive corporations. And then when 2008 came around and they wrecked the economy, these banks got bigger afterwards, and nothing's happened in that regard. And this ties back to Bill Clinton deregulating that. But also, George W., like we were saying, rose massive, massive deficits because of his wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as just cutting taxes in general. And so all of these factors culminated into a toxic brew, as it were, that really primed our economy for such a crash. And so then it was Obama's term to try and fix what was broken with the previous presidencies, and he didn't clean up fast enough for the Republicans, at least. So they bitched and moaned and cried and complained the entire time, and we are here today with an orange fascist in the White House from the Republicans, and yeah, it's this country's going great right now, right? but I mean, all of our problems today have very obvious starts. All of these things have culminated into what we are today and what our problems are today, because none of these problems were fixed. None of them were fixed.
Just a load of progressive fuck-ups.
Yeah. And Obama gave massive handouts to the biggest banks with the bailout, and the tax or the policies that have come out to try and fix the recession have all just really largely benefited the wealthiest and kind of hurt the rest of us. Because if you ask anyone in the middle class or lower today if they think the economy is better today than it was before 2008, I'm pretty sure most people will say no. It's much, much worse, because people just can't get gainful employment now, and we can't get enough wages together to have any kind of gainful wealth in the future. And the only people that actually profited from it were the 1%. We bailed out the banks, and they gave massive, massive. What is it called? They gave giant bonuses to their CEOs and their stock, or their shareholders, and all of these people got massive bonuses and benefits after they wrecked the economy, and the rest of us got screwed. The jobs just haven't recovered, and they are more wealthy today than they ever have been ever. They have more wealth concentrated in them now than they ever have. and it's only getting worse. And these policies that are getting put in place and this tax plan are not helping that. They're only making it worse. So the next time this happens, it's going to be so much worse. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something as dark as almost the Great Depression itself. You know, this was what happened back then. The banks and the wealthiest got too wealthy and they wrecked the economy. And the rest of us suffer for that while they kind of just sit back and it's like they ride it out. They just ride it out because they have enough money to do so. It's, goddamn, man. It's just such a messed up situation. And I don't know what else to say on that, but like, goddamn.
It's another example of how the previous generation have fucked us over and left us to try and fix an absolute mess.
Yeah. Man, this stuff really, it's depressing, guys. I mean, obviously it's pretty depressing. Like everything is just fucked at all times. But like, it's important to not lose track of the goals in place. You know, like we need to change these things. If we just say this stuff is just so depressing, I don't want to pay attention anymore, then you kind of give these assholes all of the room that they need to screw us over even further. So this is why on this show we always try and get you guys to call your local representatives, do something to try and make an influence in this democracy we have. Because if we don't even have that influence, if you cede that influence to them, then we have nothing, you know, and we are just going to become slaves to their dystopic society and their tyranny. I really hope that we can in the future push past this and come to a better situation, maybe in 2020 with Bernie Sanders nomination for president of the United States. But it's an idea, you know. I think that would be great. That would be a step in the right direction, guys. But you know, I think we should start wrapping it up, guys. I mean, I wish we could go on further with this topic. I have a lot more to say. It's just we're already past the hour mark, I think, already. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for showing up this week and listening to our rantings and ravings. Hopefully this has been helpful for you guys to understand the situation a little better. If there's anything you guys really want us to explain to you guys better that we didn't, please get in touch with us. We are at our email address is theevolutionofnow@gmail.com. We also have a Discord server, which is a chat program that you can get on your phone or your computer, and you can talk to us in person.
There's a browser version too.
Yep, there's also a browser version, just discord.com. You can talk to us through there, and there will be a link in the description of this episode. You can also message us on Facebook. We have a Facebook channel at The Evolution of Now, facebook.com/The Evolution of Now. You can like us on there, follow us on there, and you'll get every new episode. We'll give you a notification every time it comes out on Facebook on there. It's usually Saturdays. So you'll get that if you follow us on there. And if you like the show and you want us to keep going, we have some really, really big things in the works, guys. And I really think these are going to be like monumentally, like huge, great undertakings that we're going to be going for in the very near future. And I think it'll be great. It'll be big league. It'll be fantastic, you know, phenomenal and stuff like that. But, if you guys want to, help us out with that and, you know, donate a little bit to us, you can do that on our Patreon at patreon.com/theevolutionofnow. And Right now, I think we're still at like $5 a month from our two contributors, Fred and David. They are true patriots, I will say. Although I will say David has been trying to get a little bit more, authoritarian in this and trying to dictate what we play on here. But his dictatorship will not stand with me.
He bought us out, obviously.
He's trying to buy our program here. Don't let him, guys. If you guys can help us fight back against David, help, and we can push him back into irrelevance. But anyway, guys, we really love doing this show, and we're going to be doing this regardless, I think, for a very long time. Even if we never make any money off this, I still personally love doing this. It's a really good outlet for us. But yeah, if you guys really want to help us out, we would love to, talk to you guys on the Discord. I would love to hear from you guys. But yeah, other than that, guys, you guys have any last words that you wanted to instill upon our impressionable audience here?
Have Happy New Year.
Yeah,
That's
just
it?
that.
That's it? Wow.
There we go.
Completely skip.
Sad.
Yeah, just completely skip Christmas.
No, like not even a little bit of like, yeah, call your senators, get involved, nothing like that. No, it's just Happy New Year's.
Spend some time with your families.
I mean, if we're gonna have another episode next week, then that's gonna actually technically be before, isn't it? That's before New Year's anyway. So are we gonna have an episode? I don't know.
We
haven't
talk.
decided
We gotta
yet.
talk.
We
we gotta discuss.
Well, we'll see. We'll figure it out.
I don't know if you heard the cat, but I believe that's
I did hear the cat, but the audience might have heard it too. But I might have been talking over the cat, so maybe they didn't. I don't know. We'll see. But is that Ollie?
That's Jess.
Jess. Okay. So there's Ollie and Jess, right? As your cats. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Jess has she's been sat here meowing for the last 20 minutes. I'm like, Jess, shh.
Poor cat. And also, if you guys want to donate, Jess is there. Jess needs food.
I know.
You guys need to start, donating to the show,
Jess.
or else Jess is going to starve. That's what's going to happen, guys.
Listen to this cat. Listen to that cat. Oh.
Poor kitty. You don't want to kill the cat, do you guys? Come on. You know you want to donate a little bit. You know you want just a little bit. But anyway.
All right, Sarah McLachlan.
All right, we're done.
That got a bit weird.
From the arms of a stranger. Okay, all right, whatever the song. I don't even remember the words of that song. Anyway,
people are weird.
A little bit, but you love it. Don't even lie.
I kind of do.
So, guys, thank you so much. You guys have a great week, and we will see you maybe next week, maybe not. We'll see. We will keep you up to date. I will post a little bit of something if we don't have a show next week, just announcing that we don't have a show. But have a great week. Have a great holiday season,